Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me today, as ever, it's Michael McCubbin and Henry Hill, back for more Continental Club action. The Champions League was back. Henry, how are you? Did you enjoy the week's action?
Yes. No. Actually, no. I didn't enjoy it. I feel as if the teams I was most excited for choked a little bit. Benfica.
You're a big Chelsea fan, aren't you?
I'm not. Benfica missed two big opportunities to draw that game. Fair play to Inter, by the way, going there. Bastoni. I saw a lot of people saying that Bastoni's the only centre-half in the world that can whip in crosses like that. I'm like, pretty sure he's not. Pretty sure there's other ones. I'm pretty sure Alaba was a good ball.
Yeah.
Two excellent crosses in that game from him, must be said. And then, we saw Napoli, although they did kind of batter AC across the majority. AC had the better chance to score, but Napoli really should have scored in the opening minute. And they've given themselves something to do. And then the other two ties, Bayern and Madrid. Bayern and Chelsea, look like they've got way too much to do. So, not the most amount of fireworks. I think Pat was saying yesterday, it hasn't truly caught a light, this Champions League. No. I mean, I think Napoli in the group stages was the most exciting thing. But beyond that, this competition's missing that moment it had certainly last season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been known for amazing comebacks in recent years and sort of underdog stories. And annoyingly, it looks like the best underdog stories, the Benfica and the Napoli ones, are Napoli an underdog against Milan, but still, it's a new team to progress deep. Have had a few issues there. McCubbs, your performance of the round, it had to be probably Man City. What do you reckon?
Yeah, Man City against Bayern was just ridiculous. They just, that second half display was just, you wouldn't back anyone against them, let alone a Bayern side that were, obviously very sloppy at the back. I must say though, like Upamecano obviously had a nightmare on the night, but does not warrant the barrage of abuse he received afterwards online. Like racist abuse. I think Bayern have already come out to condemn it. Sadly, not overly surprising. Hopefully that gets sorted out. But and I felt a bit aggrieved for Napoli actually. I thought the ref had a bit of a shocker second half. I don't think Anguissa should have been sent off. I think the second yellow was soft, and the first yellow came in a passage of play in which Teo Hernandez, who he brought down, I think committed a foul about in the other half of the pitch. So felt a bit aggrieved for him. And then Kim Min-jae probably shouldn't have spoken back to the ref, but also a bit of a harsh booking as well. He's out of the second leg. So worrying times for Napoli. Obviously they're going to win Serie A, so it's fine. But what a chance they're sort of in for a semi-final. Having said that, a Milan derby in the semis would be pretty amazing. It would be awesome. That picture of Materazzi and Rui Costa will be doing the rounds, no doubt, if that was to be the case. Today, guys, we are going to talk about sides that haven't had enough respect so far this season for their work. I mean, it's coming up towards the end of the season. It's nice to do a little positive spin on some teams. We've done a few transfer angles recently, but these are some sides that deserve more respect. And we're going to kick off with a friend of Continental Club, Tom Underhill, who's actually an Atalanta fan, or at least wrote a magnificent book about it. Do go check him out on Twitter. But he suggested Lazio, and McCubbs, this is a very worthy suggestion, don't you think? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've kind of been there or thereabouts throughout the season in terms of the top four race in Serie A, but now they've really pulled away in second. They're 5 points clear of Roma, who are in third. They're 7 points clear, of Inter Milan in fifth. So they really look pretty confident now of securing Champions League football. There's only 9 games to go in Serie A. I mean, you wouldn't bet against them making the Champions League, and this comes after 2 massive wins in the last few weeks against Juve and in the capital derby against Roma. And this would be just the second time in 8 seasons that they've made the Champions League after 2019-20, in which it's easy to forget they were actually really in the title race.
Pre-lockdown, I think they were either first or second.
I was looking it up earlier. They went unbeaten between September and lockdown.
Wow.
And then I think they might have lost in June or whatever when it came back. But that's testament to the job that Simone Inzaghi did, of course. And even at that point, Lazio had a relatively ageing squad, limited in some areas, a little bit over-reliant on Immobile. Not that much has changed, really, since Inzaghi left and Maurizio Sarri took over in 2021. They still have a relatively limited squad. It's still, in need of rejuvenation. I can barely name you one player under the age of 25 in that entire squad. This season, in some ways, especially towards the start of the season, was a bit disappointing. They went out of the Europa League. They then lost to AZ Alkmaar in the Conference League. But I think that's benefited them not having European football. Yeah. Sarri has always been a manager who likes to have 6 days between each game. I think he said earlier this year, I think he did the maths himself, that after Europa League games on the kind of Sunday games after the Thursday night games in Serie A, I think they were winning less than a point a game and winning more than 2 points a game. When they weren't playing midweek.
I wonder whether that's just a coincidence that Conte also doesn't like too many competitions as well. Maybe it's an Italian thing.
Maybe.
Simone Inzaghi, very good cup manager though, so maybe that doesn't quite make sense.
I think that might be slightly reductive. But and also to be fair, from Sarri himself, is it also maybe a bit of a coincidence? Maybe on those days when they're playing after the Europa League, they might have been playing tougher opposition. I didn't make the time to actually go into that. But nevertheless, they have been in brilliant form since going out of the Conference League. They're unbeaten in their last 7 games. They've won 6 of them. They've really pulled ahead of that chasing pack behind Napoli. Obviously not a chance in hell of catching Napoli, but yeah, it's only about a month or two ago where it felt like Lazio, they were a little bit fortunate to be where they were. Obviously, Juve had that points deduction. And to be fair, when you look at their underlying numbers, that nothing massively sticks out. Obviously, Immobile's been injured for a fair amount, or 13 games this season, so he's not had the output that he perhaps would have liked. I think he's only scored 9 in the league so far. They're not a super possession-based side like the ones that we've seen from Sarri in the past. I think they average about 52% possession. From that, you'd think maybe they'd be, maybe he'd switch up their style and maybe they'd be quite a fast counter-attacking team. They're not even that. They still like to play slow build-up. But what they do have is a number of players who have just been incredibly clinical this season, and he has got the best out of them. None more so than Mattia Zaccagni, who was on loan from Verona last year, has had his transfer made permanent last summer. 10 goals and 5 assists in 26 league games. He's just been an absolute revelation. Scored the winner against Roma in the derby. Scored and assisted against Juve. In that Juve game, by the way, and I'm not really one to moan about diving, but oh my God, Alexandro, I would be embarrassed to show my face in public after that. To dive so blatantly and give away a goal in the process is just unforgivable. But you were saying off screen, Henry, about Zaccagni, how Sarri's turned him into more of that winger, and it's been really, really effective, right?
I think his man management is just something that's been so good this season in terms of he's looked at Immobile dropping off a bit and he's thought, how can I get the best out of my forward line? And he's made sort of Felipe Anderson into more of a false nine. Yeah. His goal return hasn't been huge, but he's been able to do a lot more for the team up there. And Zaccagni, he was always a good player at Hellas Verona, but I think it's really Sarri that's put him into that attacking threat role on the left side of the attack and realised that this is his best position, and he's returned it with one of his best goal returns ever across a campaign. And I think they've paid about €8 million for him, so he's an absolute snip.
And I think this is it as well. Romagnoli as well. Getting him from Milan, and they've got the best defence in Serie A this season. Provedel in goal has been great as well. But to only have conceded 20 at this point in the season. And I think they have always punched above their weight a little bit, Lazio, in terms of they haven't had the spending power of a lot of their rivals over the last few years. I was having a look over the last 2 years. They have spent, I think, the 13th most. They rank 13th for money spent in Serie A. That's behind the likes of Sassuolo. I think even. Tons of teams. I can't name them off.
Maybe Fiorentina.
Bologna. Fiorentina, definitely. They've been quite big spenders. Salernitana, they've spent less money then. And then when you look at net spend, so taking into account players sold as well, they still rank pretty low. I think 12th below clubs like Venezia, if you're taking into consideration clubs who have been in Serie A over the last 2 seasons. And obviously, clubs that come up, they do have to spend a little bit beyond their means, but they rank below all the big clubs in Italy by quite a way in that sense. I think they have a net spend of something like minus €5 million.
Because of this, the relationship between the fans and the owners is really fraught at Lazio. I think it's called Lolito or something like that. He's a businessman.
Lolito.
He saved them from bankruptcy at the turn of the century, but now they really kind of... There's lots of criticisms that he doesn't invest enough in the club, that he's taking money out, etc. And he's come out with some classic quotes actually, which I feel like you only get in Italian football, certainly of owners. He said, even if I made it free at the Olimpico, they wouldn't turn up anyway. So for him, he's come fought fire with fire. And actually, they've done pretty well, all things considered, in the last few years. They're in the Champions League, round of 16 only a few seasons ago.
I think they drew Bayern as well. They were quite unfortunate there.
If they do secure Champions League football this season, then that will be massive for them in that sense.
Absolutely. I think it's actually Latito now I think about it. I think it's Claudio Latito. I think also it's worth mentioning that they've been in the shadow of Roma. I think last year, Roma winning a European trophy, bringing in a coach of the calibre of Jose Mourinho. It felt like whether they were really going to lose quite a lot of ground on their fiercest rivals, but they've beaten them home and away for the first time in 11 years. And look like, the second best side in Italy probably right now. At least prior to, last weekend, we're probably saying it was Juve, but then they beat Juve and controlled that game quite effectively, I thought. It will be interesting to see what happens in Sarri's long-term future. I mean, maybe he is one of those managers, a bit like Unai Emery, that really thrives in a club where he can slightly build it up and he doesn't have to wrestle with an ingrained philosophy. Like I think it was a really difficult job to take over from Allegri, to be honest, at Juve, and I think he was pretty badly treated by Chelsea fans as well, who I think were coming off the back of Conte and expected that side to challenge and win the Premier League, and it didn't quite happen, but they won the Europa League, they finished third, they reached a EFL Cup final even, and he did pretty well, and it was the final season of Hazard as well, and he got him really on, purring.
He wasn't fired. He left on his own terms.
Exactly.
There you go.
And I think the advantage he has here, I think Lazio is a good fit for him in some ways because they had Inzaghi for so many years, let him really build a project there. I think what will be interesting is the fact that this squad does need renewal. We've been saying it for years. And okay, all the everyone's playing to the same tune under Sarri at the moment, but like he does, there's still more he could. It's his second season, but I still feel like we're yet to really see Sarri's Lazio really come into its own, and for that, they need investment.
With Milinkovic-Savic probably leaving this summer. Hopefully they can get a bit of wedge of
cash.
I know. Don't hold your breath. But hopefully, if they do get some cash for that, they can, with Champions League money, they can really go right. Let's get on with this.
Yeah, unless they just want him for one more year in the Champions League. But then he's already played in the Champions League for Lazio. It is so difficult. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Lazio. But that was a great suggestion from Tom Underhill. Henry, I think this is even a better one potentially. This is Feyenoord comes in from Tottenham Hotspur comps, effectively. Feyenoord, what a story.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we discussed Arne Slot as a manager, one to watch, essentially, in a few Continental Clubs ago. So I won't repeat too much of what I said there. But they are just a very exciting team. And what he's done with them, very fluid in the way that they set up, can really take it to any side at the moment. I think they're going to cause Roma serious problems. We'll know by now how well they got on the first leg of that.
Fingers crossed.
Europa League. I might record 2 of those just to see how it plays out. But yeah, they're a force to be reckoned with. And if you look at the Eredivisie League table this season, they're flying ahead of the opposition right now. 8 points clear of Ajax with 6 matches remaining. Only one of those matches is against a side in the top half of the table too, and that's against Utrecht. So it's really theirs to lose. And they've taken 4 points against Ajax this season. Now, we were having a look at the highlights of that game in the office a few weeks ago. Ajax really made it intimidating for them, flares and everything. There was a serious atmosphere there.
There was that flare up between Tadic as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and they got it done. I mean, I don't condone in the cup recently, which Ajax beat Feyenoord, where Davy Klaassen got something. Yeah, someone got thrown at his head. Like that's not.
Was it a coin? Something like that.
That's
anyway,
not right at all. But yeah, it's in that game, Feyenoord refused to sort of lie down and went for it, and they got their just reward. And the only game they've lost all season in the league was 4-3 to PSV. I mean, that's pretty remarkable.
Months ago as well.
Isn't it? Yeah, months ago. So that's serious championship winning form, and they deserve great credit for what they've done. Taking 20 shots per game, that's the most in the Eredivisie this season. It is kind of a perfect storm at the moment. PSV have lost Gakpo. They've had a few changes behind. Götze obviously left in the summer. Ajax is a team really in transition. So this is the moment for Feyenoord to jump up and grab the title. title back. Last one was in 2015, 16.
Yeah.
Place went absolutely mental when they did it then.
Was that when Kaut was back there?
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
so,
Yeah. But I mean, you can't take away what Schlotter's done, and he had pedigree with his Alkmaar side before that. They're second for possession too. And they've scored 9 fewer goals than Ajax, who still got probably arguably the greater firepower in the Eredivisie. But really interesting guy who I've seen a lot of people mentioning on Twitter we should be talking about, Santiago Jimenez. He was their top scorer at the moment, 10 goals, 26 games. This is his first season. He only cost €4 million from Cruz Azul.
Bargain alert.
Yeah, and what's interesting about him is he was omitted from the Mexican World Cup squad, and that really annoyed a lot of Mexican fans. And he is actually everything that they needed at that tournament. He's a focal point. Raul Jimenez, I'm sorry, is just
Can't even really. Well, Mexico just really dull at the World
Cup. They were really bad, and they just looked toothless going forward. Raul Jimenez, sadly, can't quite cut it. Certainly,
was he?
Yeah, international level, and so Santiago Jimenez, he would have been a great alternative there. But yeah, really exciting guy. I think he scored tons in the Europa Conference League last season, and he's sort of doing it again this term. Also got Danilo in on a free transfer from Ajax. He's got eight goals, but the big star is Orkun Koçu, this sort of all-action Turkish central midfielder.
I need to watch more of him.
He's been there for a long time. He knows what he's really exciting to watch.
He's been a bit of a regular since he was like 17, 18, hasn't he? And I think towards the start of his career there, I think there was even maybe a year or two ago, there was the classic thing with kind of young players, like there were like concerns over his kind of attitude and whatnot, but it seems like he's matured a lot this season.
Yeah, I mean he's if you see any like videos or whatever of the streets of Rotterdam, he's their guy. He's the one that everyone's got the shirt of, which I think is really cool. I mean it's great to have like a Turkish player coming over here and doing that. So yeah, he's really. But the rest of the team, they've got so many guys that have scored goals throughout the squad, and that's just testament to the way that Schlott's got them really bursting forward. It's why he would maybe make a good fit for Leeds, because they do kind of play in quite a frenetic style. No one's got a set position. He's willing to make players move around and play in different roles. So centre halves can bomb forward at certain points, and it's why people like David Hanko, 25-year-old centre back, he's been great. 2 goals, 4 assists. He can kind of get involved with everything. Leads the side for tackles, interceptions, clearances, blocks, long balls, and is second behind Koçu for passes per game. So that's the kind of all-action player that he looks for. They've said that Arne Slot's got this kind of Cruyffian mentality to him, and yeah, I think it's pretty cool what this Feyenoord side have done. I hope that if Schlott does leave, he goes to a good club. I mean, do you know what I mean? I don't want him just to go to some.
He's been linked with Leicester, and I'm just like, aim higher.
I've been writing about Leicester today. The amount of surgery that Leicester squad needs. They've got 15 players with their contract up by 2024. They're probably going to get ready. I mean, they might survive. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, I just hope he chooses the right project where he can really get his teeth stuck in. Because as we've seen in the Premier League this season, certainly no job is safe in regards, and not even a job that you join mid-season. You might lose that after that. So yeah, but yeah, Feyenoord going for the Eredivisie could do well in the Europa League too. What a season for them. And yeah, Rotterdam is going to explode this season.
100%. Even more impressive in that they lost Sinisterra in the summer. They lost Turo Malacia as well. And they lost Marco Senesi as well. So 3 of their key players, after an amazing season last year, didn't quite challenge in the league, or they really improved from their points tally, but they reached the UEFA Conference League final. And they were the better side against Roma, I think, by most people's admission. It was just that Zaniolo goal, that proved to be the difference. But massive respect to Feyenoord, and Arne Slot looks like he's going to have a massive future. Looks like any club that gets him is going to be lucky to have him. Right, let's move on to Source Like Sharon's suggestion of Lens. What a name, Source Like Sharon, love it. Lens is a fascinating story, and we are going to touch on them in big match predictions, because they do have a game against PSG this weekend, which would be fascinating if they manage to win that. But anyway, yeah, Lens' story, they've been a bit of a yo-yo side until recently. They spent 9 of the last 14 seasons in Ligue 2, and the season that they went up was the COVID season, which we were talking about with Lazio. And Frank Asse came in February 2020, so just before COVID. COVID happened and they were sitting second in Ligue 2 at the time, but it was incredibly tight. There was like a matter of points in it between them, Clermont-Foot, I think Lorient were in front of them. So they basically got up kind of by accident. It wasn't necessary, they weren't necessarily going to finish second if the league had played out, but they took that luck, and then, they've done amazingly well since then. So they finished 7th in their first campaign back. They backed that up with 7th again last term. And they've consistently lost some of their best players at the last few years as well. They lost Loic Badet to Reims. Then last summer they lost Jonathan Klaus to Marseille. That felt like it was going to be a huge loss as well, because he was exceptional at Lens last year. I think we might have even put him in our Continental Club team of the season. Yeah. And they also lost Cheikh Doucouré to Crystal Palace last summer as well, who's proven in minutes at Crystal Palace that he does look like he's got a massive future in front of him. He's been, had some issues with his discipline recently, but one to watch for sure. But their transfer business over the last few years has been really, really effective. Apologies, I don't know the name of their sporting director, but whoever it is, massive respect. Maybe get it in the comments if you do know, because Seko Fofana, 8.5 million euros. Kevin Danso, who had that spell at Southampton a few years ago, 5.5 million euros from Augsburg. Bryce Samba, 5.5 million euros as well. Luis Openda, who we talked about on the striker Continental Club just a few weeks ago, and McCubb so eloquently described his recent performances. They got Alexis Claude Maurice on loan as well. And this year, they've just been absolutely exceptional. 3 defeats in 30 games this season. They've beaten Monaco. In fact, they thrashed Monaco 4-1. They've beaten Lyon and Marseille both 1-0. They beat PSG 3-1 already this season. So this is just probably the most under-talked about story this season, because I think Feyenoord and Lazio have got more credit. So massive, massive respect to Lens. That whole operation, underdog side, underdog manager, underdog players, and they are just, embarrassing some of the bigger boys in French football that haven't managed to get their act together consistently. Marseille, Monaco should be competing for second in the league, really. I mean, they are technically, but should be above Lens. Lyon should be higher up as well. Rennes, Nice, lacking in consistency. So Lens, massive respect. Right, McCubbs, let's move on to some of these other suggestions. Yes. I mean, Freiburg seems like quite a good one.
Yeah, I think Freiburg deserve a lot of credit just for the kind of continuity they've shown. Last season was really the season where they were the story. They were, challenging for the title at one point. To be fair, they were up. They were up in kind of third, second place at the start of this season as well. And the continuity obviously is down to Christian Streich, who's been there for nearly 12 years now.
Must be one of the longest-serving managers in Europe, along with Diego Simeone.
I think. Well, he's been there since December 2011. That's literally when Simeone took over at Atleti. So. Like them two, I'm trying to think. Maybe there is someone else out there, but it's unlikely. It's unlikely that there's anyone in the top 5 leagues who's outlasted them. And of course, he went through a relegation with them, brought them back up, and they've been in the top 8 3 times since it's coming back up. They finished 6th last season. They look on course to finish at least 6th this term. They're 5th at the moment. They obviously beat Bayern in the DFB Pokal, so they've got the semi-final against Leipzig coming up. A great, another great chance to do it. I mean, it's obviously a replay of last year's final as well, which I think they were a little bit aggrieved to have lost. Who was it who cleared it off the line?
Yeah.
I think they had a chance cleared off the line by.
I think Schlotterbeck had a chance. Was it?
Yeah, maybe. Or did Schlotterbeck clear off the line himself?
They were the better team in that DFB Pokal. They and then Leipzig even had 10 men, I think, at one point.
Really?
Freiburg were so unlucky not to win that.
Fair.
But
it's escaping me now.
But yeah, of course. But they obviously lost Schlotterbeck last summer. Ginter came back, which was great. But yeah, so they've done really well given that they did lose one of their best players from last season. Vincenzo Grifo has been a revelation, 13 goals in the league. I think only Nicholas Füllkrug has scored more than him. Of course, Ritsu Doan, who was one of the stars of the World Cup as well, has 7 league goals.
Scored against Germany, I think.
Yes, he did. He scored the winner or the second or the first goal. No, I think it was
definitely 2 Bundesliga players.
Ritsu Doan scored the first. It was the former Arsenal guy.
Osana.
Osana scored the winner. Yeah. I'm pretty sure if memory serves me correctly. But then I think Doan also scored the first goal against Spain. Either way, I think he came off the bench both times and was just ridiculous. But yeah, so I mean, Christian Streich deserves great credit, and I think also. It's you've got to also look at the fact that they've changed stadiums in the last year as well, and
didn't know that.
They have continued. It's not because I think their previous stadium was considered one of the best atmospheres in Germany. I think it gets really, really cold in the winter because it's like in the middle of the Black Forest. So I think it's quite a hostile environment and really, really noisy. and they moved into a kind of shiny new stadium, I think, midway through last season. But Strike has, been able to continue that form, sustain that atmosphere. So yeah, I think they are a really good candidate, because I think last year they probably did get the credit they deserved, because they hadn't really made a proper fist of going for the top 4 before, whereas this season we're just kind of taking it for granted that they're in the top 6, and they are still massively punching above their weight in a league where there are still tons of big clubs who are struggling to get into the top 8.
Yeah, for sure. Gladbach, Wolfsburg, etc. Henry, where do you want to go next with these suggestions?
That's amazing. I sent you a personal one of Braga, but it didn't make the short list. Well, no, it was just more that they're third in the Primeira Liga. They've beaten Benfica twice this season, once in the cup, and they're in the semi-finals of the Taça de Portugal, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. Also, I think, USG, a lot of people wanted to mention Union Saint-Gilloise. We've got a top 10 coming up about underdogs going for glory this season, so we'll have a full section on them for you to get into. But unbelievable from
in the
them.
Europa League tonight as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What a game that would be. And I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my favourite club in the world, Galatasaray, because they won 17 games in a row at one point this season, which is nuts. I saw James Rodriguez has been released today by Olympiacos, and apparently he's been linked with Galatasaray.
Of course he has. That would be the most Galatasaray signing ever.
They've got a serious, star-studded.
I haven't really. So,
I think that
of their
17
stars,
game
who
unbeaten.
actually plays regularly?
Icardi scores goal.
Does he?
Does
Mata play a lot?
He's doing really well. Mata, he kind of comes in and out. I think Zaniolo's made limited impact, but Icardi has really been the one this season. Mertens has been playing well as well.
Yeah, that's a strong team. I mean, that's the thing. It's and I think that 17 game run, might be unprecedented. I think
it's a Turkish record.
Yeah.
They've never seen it before, which is I think when we were joking at the start of the season about all the players they're signing, it's actually go and gel a team together. Yeah. They're still only 6 points clear in the Super League, but anyway, I actually think at Kane Lorenz, Fiorentina is such a good shout at the moment. They've really clicked into gear once again. I appreciate that they'll play in the Conference League tonight. It might be a different result, but they've won 9 games in a row at the moment, 11 unbeaten. So they're banging form, and I'm really pleased because Vincenzo Italiano, their underlying numbers were always really good, but they just were not getting the results that they needed at the start of the season. They've now really turned it on. They've been in formidable form, certainly since Christmas in 2023. They're now 9th in the table. Not only that, they're into the Coppa d'Italia final, and they're still in the Conference League. So to juggle 3 big tournaments and be where they are now. Arthur Cabral is finally stepping up and scoring goals for them, which is good. I think he's a decent striker. Things are beginning to click in Fiorentina, and if they can get over the line in the Coppa d'Italia, at the very least, I think they've won it. If they win, they become the 6th most successful team in the history of the competition. They have won it a few times, not in a long, long time. They've been in one final, certainly in the last decade or 2 decades or so. So they've got pedigree in that competition. If they can win it there, it's just it's a great club, and I'm really excited. They deserve huge credit for what they've done, and I think they've quietly gone unnoticed, certainly in 2023, just how successful they've been. Nice.
Yeah, a Fiorentina Inter Milan final would be great actually, after the horrendous racist abuse suffered by Lukaku in the other semi-final.
Sorry, you're right. There's a second leg.
They're
not in the final. They've got a 2-0 lead over Cremonese.
So they got a 2-0 lead, but it would be great if they did play Inter Milan. And they actually beat Inter Milan recently as well, so maybe they'd have a chance of winning that, which would be a phenomenal story for La Viola. Quick shout out for Osasuna as well. Ryan Gold 23 suggestion. They're currently 8th. Not the most entertaining side, but very defensively solid. They're also through to the Copa del Rey final. Again, they got through beating Athletic Club with a very late goal.
Unreal goal.
Really nice goal. But yes, it was slightly against the run of play, to put it mildly. But fair play to Osasuna. They're through to a cup final. Guys, who is your most disrespected team this season? I think Lens is a very good shot. I think Lazio, Feyenoord, one of those probably. But get your thoughts in the comments down below. And let's move on to our big match predictions. Right, it's time for big match predictions. You won't have seen, but off camera there was a bit of a VAR moment when it appeared that I'd been fiddling the books, but for all of us, because I'll explain in a second actually. Let's just go through the scores first. Bayer Leverkusen versus Eintracht Frankfurt. Henry went 3-2 to Leverkusen, McCubbs went 2-1 to Leverkusen, I went 2-0. It was 3-1. We were all so close, but 1 point to all of us. Lazio versus Juventus. None of us saw the 2-1 Lazio result. What a result there, so no points to any of us. Nice versus PSG. Henry went 2-0 to Nice. Didn't seem actually that crazy at the time. I went 3-1 PSG, McCubbs went 2-1. It was 2-0 thanks to those goals from Lionel Messi. Really nice goal actually. and Sergio Ramos as well from a corner. So 1 point to myself and McCubs. I'm now on 53, Henry's on 38, and McCubs is on 37. I did actually add us all an extra point. That was the controversy beforehand, but there was no cheating involved. It was just bad maths from me. Anyway, guys, we've got some interesting games, actually. Some new sides that we haven't talked about that much in this section so far. Henry, let's start with the relegation clash kicking off in a few hours' time in the Bundesliga. Schalke versus Hertha Berlin, 18th versus 17th. There's 1 point between them. Where's your money?
I am going to go with Schalke on this one. I just think at this point they're showing a bit more cohesion. They've been a bit more steady run of form. I mean, they had 6 draws and 2 wins in their previous 8 games. Yes, they've lost the last 2 games against Bayer Leverkusen and a big defeat to Hoffenheim. So, but still, I think they've shown enough grit at moments to certainly get over the line against Hertha, who've sort of suddenly plummeted deeper and deeper into a relegation battle. After looking like they had their noses above it, they've suddenly dropped down a bit more. And yeah, when you look at the final few fixtures for Schalke, Bayern Munich, Eintracht, Leipzig, you are thinking they've got to get the job done now. It's tricky. The problem with Schalke is they don't really have like a star.
No.
They don't really have someone who can take the game by the scruff of its neck, which Hertha do. And that's the problem for me here. But I can just see them grinding out a 1-0 victory. At least it's at their home ground, and I think it'll be pretty formidable because they do need to survive. They need to survive. I'm more, yeah.
They need to turn that atmosphere on. I remember writing for Hertha Berlin on an EFT Explained maybe 2 years ago, actually, and I think it was called What the Hell's Happened to Hertha Berlin, and it was fascinating looking back at the amount of sporting directors that they've had, managers they've had. Like, they've asked for this a long time, and they've just completely been superseded by Union Berlin, their sort of younger brother in Berlin. I mean, who have a stadium that's about a third of the size and no history in comparison to Hertha Berlin. But it's just been a sad demise from a club that should be doing much better. It's got one of the biggest stadiums in Germany, the Olympic Stadium. McCubs, do you see anything for the boys? I was about to say the boys in blue, but they both play in blue, really. But
the royal blue.
The royal blue.
I do feel like under the lights, as you like to say, Dukes, Schalke at home could make the difference. Yeah, I mean, Hertha they've just got a massive rebuild project coming up in it. I mean, it's kind of vital for both teams to stay in the Bundesliga, really. But Hertha are now, under new, they now have a new majority investor. They're now part of, like many clubs, now part of a multi-club network, along with another. Trying to think who else is in there, but anyway, that's going off a tangent there. In this game, I think actually what will happen, I think it might be a hard-fought draw for both clubs. I'm going to go for I might go for a 2-2. Yeah,
2-2.
I think this one is going to come in
a high-stakes game, going for a 2-2. Yeah, I mean, Henry, I think is probably right. I think Schalke are in better form, but Hertha have probably the bigger star, and Dodi Lukebakio, who played really well for Belgium actually in the international break as well. They'll really need him to step up. I'm going to go for a narrow Schalke win, I think 2-1. I think that home atmosphere might have something to say. Right, let's move on to PSG versus Lens. Saturday, 8 p.m, first versus second. There are 6 points between them. This could potentially be it. I mean, McCubs, do you see Lens sort of turning it around? I mean, not turning it around, but getting the result they need to get over the line? Is there any way that Lens win the title?
Really difficult. I mean, yeah, it's tough. I mean, this is such a 6-pointer, isn't it? I mean, if PSG were to win, they're 9 points clear. If they're to lose, then there's only 3 points between them, and suddenly that's a very nervy lead.
It's on like Donkey Kong.
Yeah, so... Sorry?
It's on like Donkey Kong.
It's on like Donkey Kong.
It is on like Donkey Kong. That's exactly the phrase.
That's not a phrase I've ever heard before, but I'm sure. I'm sure the French.
I don't think it's the Doogie one. But,
No, I'm sure it's not. It's just not like that. But I love
French
it.
should be saying it as well.
Yeah, I love it.
Say on like Donkey Kong.
I did used to play Donkey Kong in the old Game Boy Color.
Oh.
I did have a classic Donkey Kong game. One of the classics.
Will this be a classic?
I think it might be, yeah. I think it might be. There's obviously a lot to play for. I think the Parc des Princes will be pretty buzzing. But I just can't see it, annoyingly. I just can't. Well, I think Lens will give them a good game, but I just think PSG will have too much. The Lens defence is great. They're they're conceding the second fewest shots per game in the league. Lois Openda, of course, we've spoken about him. He has been great, but I just think that win on the weekend for PSG, they don't have any other distractions. I just think there's so much title winning experience in that PSG side at this point that I think it's hard to bet against them. I'd love to be a romantic and say that Lens are going to win, but I think PSG will get the job done. I'll say 3-1.
It is going to be interesting. What is the fallout from these Christophe Galtier allegations?
It's a big distraction
as well. Very big distraction, to be fair, because if those allegations are true, horrendous, racist things that he said and Islamophobic things that he said, really, really disappointing if they are true. And he should be, unemployed immediately and potentially never employed again.
I actually completely forgot about that. So the PSG ultras have basically called for his head if they are true. There's like you said, there's that investigation going on. So actually, who knows what the atmosphere is going to be like at the Parc des Princes? It could be quite a hostile one, and not in a good way for the PSG team. But I'll stick to it. But like worrying times for Galtier if those if those allegations are true, I think it's gonna be tough for him to come back into the game, to be honest.
For sure.
But anyway, there's no point speculating.
No, exactly.
But they are pretty serious allegations.
They definitely are. Right, Henry, score.
Just quickly, irrelevant of whether or not it's true or not, just the general respect towards players during Ramadan needs to improve. I actually think it's okay in the UK.
Should get it right.
It's good compared to France, at least. In France, it's really bad.
The science is there to prove that it doesn't actually change their performance ability. And if Ramadan's taking place during the heat and summer months, there should be more respect. I can't believe they're not doing more like drinks breaks. Some referees like opting into it, others are certainly not. But
it's when you've got teammates who are pretending to be injured just so their teammate can have like a drink. It's just madness.
It's absurd. Like there's no way the two can't exist harmoniously together. Anyway, but this game. I mean, I backed Nice last week and got that horribly wrong. So. It could be an interesting atmosphere there. Even though Lens did beat them at home, I felt that was more to do with a lot of the PSG mistakes rather than Lens playing particularly well. So I'm going to stick with a PSG win. I will go for a 2-1 win to them.
2-1 win, fair enough. I was talking with Hass, a guy who works for Football Daily, who does our thumbnails the other day about Ramadan. Nothing but respect for how they managed to do it. It's an incredible. I can't go 2 hours without food. Like it's an incredible achievement. So I think football needs to wake up, as Henry says, and respect, an amazing tradition. And show it the respect it deserves. In terms of this game, I don't think PSG will mind drawing this, to be honest, and I don't think they'll be at their best. There's been a lot of off the pitch distractions. I'm actually going 1-1 for this one. Guys, get your predictions for that in the comments down below. Let's move on to another relegation battle. Well, it's not really for Sevilla anymore, but it's Valencia versus Sevilla, Sunday 8 p.m, 13th versus 18th. There's 5 points between them, actually. So a Valencia win could throw it into question. Henry, Valencia, they are just slipping towards a relegation by the looks of things.
Yeah, it's not looking good for Valencia at all. I mean, Gattuso, I think it's... I don't think results were bad enough to justify him being fired, but I think that was more just a general frustration with him at the state of the club. You've got fans just booing and hissing Peter Lim. It's just a pretty toxic atmosphere, and since he's gone, they actually got off to a good start, I think. But then since then, 1-2, drawn 1, lost 7, and Ruben Baraja came in. And the reason that he was hired essentially is because he's a Valencia legend. And they were, it's like an easy way to appease a very hostile fan base. But the reality is he never managed above the second division of Spain with, I think it's Zaragoza. So he'd never even managed in the La Liga, and to be thrown into that environment is not great at all. With the youngest squad in La Liga who just desperately needed direction, they've lost it at the moment. And it does look like they're slipping towards relegation. They're 18th in the form table and 18th in the actual table. They still got Villarreal, Real Madrid and Betis to come. Betis on the final day. It's a horrible game for them, really. They've got 11th best defence, but they've only scored 30 goals in 28 games. So much weight of responsibility has been placed on Cavani's shoulders, which, but for a guy who hasn't really played consistent football in the past 2 seasons, is a problem. So whereas Sevilla are showing a bit of form, they'll have played Manchester United. I don't think it really matters, the Europa League, to them at the moment. It's just sort of a free hit for them. So I'm actually going to go with Sevilla on this one. I'm going to back them to do something here. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win to Sevilla.
Do you think the fact that they've got this game on Thursday, Maccabi, Sevilla, do you think that might tire them out ahead of this huge game at the Mestalla?
Yeah, I mean potentially, and I think obviously there's been a lot of bad feeling around Valencia for years now, but obviously there've been a ton of protests in the last few months. But at the same time, they do have a club legend in the dugout, and I think the atmosphere will be. I think they will be, super behind him. As bad as it's got, I don't think most Valencia fans really want them to get relegated. It would be, a disaster for them financially in a year where, in a kind of 12 months where, there's been talk of getting the new stadium back underway and whatnot. So, I actually think Valencia might do it. I think they might pull it off. I'm going to say 2-1.
Nice. Did you give a score?
2-0 to Sevilla.
2-0 to Sevilla. Fair enough. Yeah, I might back Sevilla as well, actually. I just think they might put further pain down Valencia's way. I might go 3-1 to Sevilla. En-Nesyri has shown a little bit of form recently as well. Such a streaky player, but does occasionally look brilliant. But yeah, 2 goals in his last 2 games. So we'll see what happens there. Let's quickly talk about this quickfire question coming in from ECFC0504. What should happen to Sadio Mane? I mean, Henry, what did you make of this story?
The bottom line is it's one guy punching another guy in the workplace, and that's not
acceptable, is it?
That's not acceptable anywhere else.
Because you've often wanted to punch one of us.
Believe me. Patrick Van Straten, have one of these. Yeah.
It's funny actually. I'm editing a Stat Wars at the moment, and he said if he was going to headbutt anyone in the office, it would be you. So,
did he actually say that? He's been slagging me off on every single episode. I don't understand what his problem is. He said he'd headbutt me. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Henry's offended.
He was put up to it by Hamill to accept, but he did say you. Yeah.
Fair enough. I don't know. Yeah.
I think you just discussed it at your performance this season in the Spaceship.
Still got the playoff to come.
Danny's got some compilation of me just looking miserable in black and white.
Really?
So anyway, listen. Yeah. So I mean, yeah. What has happened to Mane is he's been fined and he's been removed from the team from their game. Is it against
Hoffenheim this weekend?
This weekend, and that seems to be a plausible cause of action. I don't know what their argument was about particularly. It was a bit of a crap. It was a bit of a show, that game anyway. I'm not surprised that emotions were running high. But yeah, it's a punch. He's the senior player as well in that situation. He's
always been there longer.
He's been there longer, but Mane should know better than that. It's not.
It seems very out of character for him as well, right? Like every single kind of character reference of Mane has always been, glowing. Everyone, I think some people from Football Daily, I can't remember who. I don't think it was anyone but anyway, some guys who we used to work with went and filmed with him a few years ago. Said he was like the loveliest bloke. Kate gave lots of time to people. People in Liverpool, he used to use a lot of local services. Was very. I think he went to a local mosque in Toxteth. Was I don't know. He just always seemed like a very friendly.
Built a whole community in Senegal.
Yeah, he's always seemed like a very upstanding person. So I was incredibly surprised when it was his name that came out of that. So yeah, it must have been. It's really difficult to know what exactly went down, but obviously did come after a really crushing defeat. But yeah, I mean, the way this question was worded is just found quite funny. It's just thought what
lock him up.
Yeah,
what should happen to Sadio Mane?
I think what Bayern have done is the right cause of action at a minimum. But yeah, I don't think you can fester an atmosphere where you can just punch people in the.
You just got to hope that that the players kind of have sorted it out internally. When was it? Who was it in the England camp a few years ago? Was it Joe Gomez and Sterling?
Sterling, yeah. Squared up to each other.
Yeah, they had a bit of a thing, and that was resolved pretty well. And yeah, so you just and also you kind of back someone like Thomas Tuchel. I think
you can say you're going to back in the fight.
Tuchel comes in.
Yeah,
you back Sadio.
You kind of back Tuchel. I think Tuchel's a decent manager for a situation like that. He's very, very experienced. Has dealt with difficult situations in squads before. So
again, I mean, manage PSG. I think this is a whole lot of nothing, to be honest. I think the bigger story is the fact it's leaked. This must happen all the time in dressing rooms. And I swear Bayern is one of the most leakiest dressing rooms around. feel like we find out everything that goes on in the bar and dressing room. And they used to say it was Nagelsmann. Clearly it's not Nagelsmann anymore. Like, there's just a few people that talk too much to the media in that dressing room, or one of the coaches, or one of their family members, and it's a whole lot of nothing, really. This happens all the time in football. And yeah, he's been suspended, but if it hadn't hit the media, he probably wouldn't have been. So it just feels a bit stupid, to be honest. But that's my personal thoughts. So that's what we think. ECFC 0504 to what should happen to Mane. Not lock him up. Get on with it. Is our general conclusion there. But guys, that's it for Continental Club for this week. If you wanted more of a deep dive on our Champions League reactions, particularly the Man City versus Bayern Munich game on Tuesday night, that was a really entertaining game, and I think the video afterwards was really good as well. The one on Wednesday, Henry and Pat did an excellent job as well. It's just a harder game to analyse because it was a little bit drier. So go check that out. Henry, anything else you'd like to push to?
No, as I said, we've got a 10 coming out about these underdog teams, and it's more interesting, like cup rivals going on. Toulouse, who knew, in the final against Nantes. What finals!
He loves this sort of stuff. Every week we have a meeting and we have to suggest video ideas, and Henry's like, we need to do Toulouse, the rise of Toulouse.
It would be the worst shout, actually. Who are they? They've got the same owner. What's the Redbird Capital, isn't it? The Milan owners.
Yeah. I appreciate the
Moneyball
niche suggestions. I think we do need to occasionally mix up, and we get a lot of accusations of only focusing on the top six. So, McCubs, anything from you?
Well, you got a very special episode of Stat Wars to look forward to tomorrow. The final episode of the OG Stat Wars.
From Beyond the Grave.
It may be Hamill, the final video that Hamill has appeared on FD. So yeah, go and check that out.
Yeah,
when it comes out.
Who? Hamill.
Yeah,
a distant memory for Henry now. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend. Bye bye.